Welcome to the Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. I'm your host, George Roberts. Welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today we have Grant Warrington, principal at Warrington Capital and Realtor in Southeast Michigan. Welcome, Grant.
Great to be here, George. Thanks again for inviting me.
Grant, tell us how you got your start in real estate.
Really, that was back in, I'll tell you, I don't know how much time we have. I'll make it short, but back in 2003 is really when I started. I bought a program from Carleton Sheets, if you remember that, and maybe some other people will. So I bought the program from Carleton Sheets, started reading a few books, and I decided to buy some properties. They were giving out some mortgages back then, and I got 3 of them. There we go. No doubt. Here you go. That's it exactly. So I bought 3 properties. The problem was I wasn't mentally prepared for them. I was not educated enough just because I bought that. And what happened was I bought these 3 properties. No one paid me. Everyone owed me $5,000. So they owed me like $15,000 total. I had to declare bankruptcy, give them back to the bank. Gave them back in great shape. The keys, I gave them the keys. There was no problems. No one else was in on the deal. It was just me. So lesson learned. I would never change it because it was a great learning experience. Taught me how to deal with tenants in those kind of situations. And B, I can't change it. So I won't change it. But that's how I got started. Really. And then in 2011 is when I talked about getting my mind right. With the help of God, I quit drinking in 2011. And that's slowly when my life started to change. Met my wife. And then in late 2014, we started getting educated, listened to Bigger Pockets, got some information about how to buy a single family home. And I think a month and a half later, we purchased one, December of 2014. So that's how I got started.
So that's great. That led to bigger and better things because I believe you had several single family homes at one point.
Yeah, you know, we built up to 11 at one point. And it was tough because we didn't have a lot of money. My wife and I put all of our money together. On the first single family, we bought it, had to rehab it, and then we were stuck. We didn't know what to do. So that was a problem. We worked through those problems in some different ways I can go over, but we got up to 11 units, and then we made a decision. It was tough finding those deals, buying those deals, rehabbing those deals. And my wife's like, do you know, if we cash flow $200 per house, we'd have to get 50 houses, let's say, to get $10,000 a month in cash flow. And I was like, that's a lot of work. And she said, yeah. So we decided, you know what, why don't we change our model and why don't we go into multifamily? And that was like 2017. And it worked out great for us. So what we did was we looked at our portfolio and we said, okay, out of these 11, how many, if the market crashed and changed, how many of these homes would we want to keep for 10 years and be happy to keep? And there was a few of them were like, no, we don't want these were stepping stones. So we sold those, got down to 6, and we bought, after some refis and things like that, we bought a 20-unit apartment building, and that started us into multifamily.
With the proceeds from those 5.
You know, I don't remember all the numbers on those. How we got started was, you know, we took out some crazy debt. We took out personal loans. I did, my wife did, credit card debt to buy houses to get them free and clear. Her condo was free and clear. She's great with money, my wife, Monika. And she moved in with me, and there was another free and clear property. We bought another one through private lender. We put mortgages on all 3 of those into a commercial loan, a blanket loan, and we got a chunk of change. You know, after we rehabbed the properties, they were worth more in value. It's basically the BRRRR strategy: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat on a larger scale with a blanket loan. So that's what we did to move forward. We'd get a chunk of change. We'd buy 3 more houses. We'd do the same thing. You know, like I said, we sold those houses off here and there. That would put a little bit more money, that'd give us more money for rehabs, things like that. So I don't really, we didn't sell all those right at once. Those were, a few years ago, we sold those, maybe 2017 or so. I don't remember. But we paid off the crazy debt when we'd sell a home, or when we'd get a blanket loan, we'd evaluate, we'd pay off a little crazy debt, maybe a personal loan, a high interest credit card. You know, we'd start with a 0% and pay that off before it turned into a high interest. And that's really how we grew. And that 20 unit apartment building, we bought that by rehabbing 3 houses, and we got a check for like 125,000. And when we refinanced those 3 into a commercial loan, blanket loan, and that's how we got the proceeds for the 20 unit.
So let's back up a little bit. That blanket loan, I think that's a very advanced thing. A lot of people probably don't understand. So tell us exactly what a blanket loan is.
It's a commercial loan. I think it's, we always shot for 3 properties, right? So when you go to a credit union or a smaller bank or something like that, you want to find a commercial lender that they're going to keep their loans on their books in-house. And what they're willing to do is they're willing to package your 3 houses together. Not all, you know, Chase, I'm sure, doesn't do this. You know, we bank with Chase, but they don't do it. Not all big banks do this. So you need to go and find smaller banks that'll do this. And that's what we did. And you can do that. They'll take 3 of your houses, they'll package them all together. Instead of refinancing 3 homes individually with a bank, you can only get so many mortgages. This is a commercial loan. You can do it over and over. So that's what we did. That's how we were able to grow. And then out of those 6, though, we did recently just sell the rest of our single family portfolio, and we own a duplex. So no more single family homes, though. 3 apartment buildings and a duplex now.
So it's 41 units total, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, we're at 41 now. Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
We always trim the fat or purge a little. We get up to 11, we sold 6, then we're up to 26. Then we sold then we got up to 37, then we sold 4, now we're up to 41. So we've always sold a little bit to move forward, if that makes sense. Wasn't the plan in the beginning, but just things change, and we decided it was the right move for us to transition out of single family. Great place to start, though. Great place.
Yeah, absolutely. Great place to start. People are comfortable with it. You already know how to purchase a home because by the time you're an investor, almost certainly own your own home. You've been through the process, use the same lenders. And then through all that process, so you get to the point where you sold 5 of your homes, and then you moved up into the 20 units. So why don't you tell us about that acquisition and making the jump to multifamily?
So that was what happened there was we were doing a city inspection for a rental certificate in one of our homes in Lincoln Park, Michigan. And I told the inspector, hey, we're looking to buy multifamily properties. And he said, hey, why don't you call this lady? She's I think she was probably in her late 70s by then. She owned maybe 30 units. And he said, why don't you call her, see if she's going to sell anything. And I said, great. So I called her. She was very nice. She gave me like 4 other buildings. Hey, these 4 buildings aren't run very well right in my city in Trenton, where I live. So I knew all of them. And she said, why don't you reach out to the owners? And happened to reach out to the owner. The guy said, well, yeah, we'll sell. We couldn't come to terms for a year. We kind of walked away from it because the building was in such bad shape, the 20 unit. And it was in really bad shape. So my wife and I, after a year, said, if not this building, then what? What else is out there? Where's the magic building that is doesn't need any repairs and is at the right price, right? So we're like, we got to do it, because what else is there? So we bought it because we knew it was going to be a lot of work and a lot of money to get it where it needed to be, and that was our major hiccup. We knew it had potential. So then we went under contract. Funny thing, the gentleman had lost the building in March. on back taxes. So he had, I think it was 10 days to redeem it with $50,000, to pay $50,000 to get it back. And we informed him, and he wasn't aware of it. So he almost lost the whole building. So he went down, paid the 50,000 and got the building back. And 9 months later, there was just a ton of hiccups. He had a loan out on the building that, you know, there was no, he was still showing a mortgage on the building, but he had paid it off in 2011. That company had went out of business. So we had to go to court to prove that there was no mortgage on it, no lien on the property. This just took so much time. It took us, 9 months, I think, to close. We ended up closing January 2019 on that 20 unit. Worked our butts off for 16 months, and 16 months later, we refinanced that building, and we bought it for $625,000, the 20 unit. It was in very rough shape, and we refinanced it. 16 months later, it was worth $1,030,000. So we were able to take a loan out for $800,000 now, pay off our loan of $500,000, and the difference was $300,000. And we got a check back to us, $300,000 tax free. So we put a lot of the money back into the building, new windows, things like that. We paid off. We had a private lender, someone that lent to us on that. We paid them off with interest, and then we moved forward. And I ended up finding an 11 unit apartment next, and you know, that was our big chunk of change then, to buy the 11 unit. And I got to say one thing, the only reason I was able to find that 11 unit was because I had quit my W-2 job, and now I was full-time in real estate. Okay. So now I was working, I'm a realtor in Southeast Michigan. Now I'm working with a client who's looking to purchase a home. As you know, the market was just crazy recently, just starting to come a little back off that, still above normal, but it's getting down a touch closer to normal, but it was crazy. So my client said, you know what, Grant, I'm renting. I'm just going to stay in my home. Would you mind talking to my landlord? And I said, yeah, no problem. I'll give him a call for you, and, you know, see what we can work out. And she said, oh, by the way, he happens to own, because she knew, I told her, he happens to own apartment buildings. And I said, great, because we just had that check in the bank and we're looking for a building. I said, fantastic. Let me talk to him. So I did talk to him. Again, if I was at my W-2, none of this would have happened. I talked to him and told him what my client wanted to do. And he said, you know what, that's fine, but I'm not going to, that's between her and I have already talked about it. I said, I'll step out of this deal. You two can do this together. No problem. I said, but she did mention you had an apartment building. He said, yeah, why don't you come look at it on Friday? Monday, I had a purchase agreement for him. And only because he wouldn't meet me sooner. And we locked that up. I mean, he was blown away at how quick we operated, and locked that up. And that was our 11 unit.
Well, I love that story. Getting back to the 20 unit, the first one, actually the second one too, it's all personal relationships. And that is an amazing way to purchase property. I think people underestimate that. A lot of deals come through brokers. Brokers are great, but a lot of times having a relationship with a property manager or someone else that's in the business is what it takes.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I said, we found those two off market. I got some really good relationships with brokers. But I haven't purchased anything through a broker yet. The third building I'll talk about in a minute was off the MLS. But yeah, I do. But yeah, people need to understand, they need to develop these relationships, let people see you're serious about what you're saying you're going to do, and execute. And that's what we do. We just try to show people, hey, here's what we do. We took this crummy building and turned it into this beautiful building. And we've consistently done that over time. And we just show people that. And when we say we're going to buy something, we buy it. And, you know, whether it's through networking or however, the more people, property managers, things you can talk to, tell them what you're looking to do. Like you said, you know, these relationships are just key.
Yeah, beautiful. And so then I believe at this point we're in maybe late or mid to late 2019, and you're up to 31 units.
Yeah, we were at, what were we at? 37.
Right, because you still had some single families. You had those 6 single family.
Yep. So that's where we're at. The 11, again, we took that down ourselves. That one, now that could be a whole nother story. We got the drains camera. There were some bellies in the drains. Long story short, this is good advice for people. If you're ever having problems with your drains and you can't find the break or any problem in the pipe, what we had a plumber come out and do is he ran all the water in the building that went to that drain, and he would flush that pipe with clear water. So when he stuck the camera through the pipe, you could see now underwater, because the camera would go underwater. And before, it was murky water in the camera, you wouldn't be able to see. Well, now he's running that clean water, stuck it under there, the camera, and he could see that the bottom of the pipe was missing. Long story short, like $25,000, $30,000 later, we had to break concrete in the basement floor, the basement unit. The tenant had to leave, fix that. And that was a major problem we had to go through. Something we didn't see. We thought we covered all our bases, but that can happen. So we knew there was issues. If someone tells you, hey, these drains back up every once in a while, get to the issue. There's something there. There's a reason that's happening. So that's what happened to us. We got it fixed, cut the concrete up in the floor, put new pipe in, new PVC, got it fixed. I just wanted to touch base on that because it was a great learning experience for us. So, but yeah, so after that, it's now 2020, and we decided January, and we decided, 2021. 2020, 2021, we decided, let's sell these single family homes. We had just replaced another drain in a home, and that cost $4,000 in a single family home. And we thought, wow, that wipes out our profits for a couple of years. And, we said, that's enough. And we used our logic again. Do we want to own these for 10 years? And the answer was no. So we sold those single families. We sold them to the tenants that were in place, to two of them. And then in three of them, the first three we sold, we put into a 1031 exchange. So if you're familiar with the 1031, we put those into one bucket, and it cost us like $2,000 to open the exchange, and then $500 per house to put into the exchange. So $500 for the second house, $500 for the third house. And we have 45 days now to identify the property we're going to buy. And we have 180 days to actually close on that property. So we now are under the gun. I called every single person I knew. I got a system for finding owners off market. What I do is I'll look on Google Maps, satellite view. I'll look for big apartment complexes, bigger buildings. I'll search them. I'm a realtor. I'll pull up public records, see what it is, who owns it. And then in the state of Michigan, I can do a business entity search to see the owner, find out who the owner is. I'll Google their name and cell phone number, and along with trying to piece together a lot of other information. And that's how I'll get people's cell phone numbers. And I reach out to them and see if you're interested in selling your building at some point in the future, I'd love to be your first call. And that's what I do. So I hit the ground with that. I probably called 50 owners. No one was interested. We have 45 days to identify, right? If we don't identify a building, we get our money back. It was $230,000 into that pool to invest in another property. We get that back if we don't identify. Problem is we have to pay $70,000 or so in tax, capital gains tax. So we're like, man, that's a lot of money. So if we can do this, so it's getting down to the wire. It was day 43 out of day 45. And if you just throw properties on there and identify them, and you're not going to purchase those, they're going to hold your money for 180 days. So that's the other thing. You just don't want to just put, I'll just list these 5 properties that I might have a chance of purchasing. Because if you don't get them under contract, they're going to hold your money.
There's a limit too. That's the limit, right? 5.
I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to purchase one of that list.
Yeah. And there's different little intricate rules. Talk to a professional about it. But yeah, that was, I think that was it. It's either 3 or 5.
Yeah, I thought it was 3 actually. So
I think
3 is the number I've got in my mind.
I think it might be. So that's why I say talk to a professional.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of pitfalls with that. You mentioned the 45-day counter and the 180-day counter. So 45 to find the property, 180s 180 days beyond that to close. And then the other thing, and people screw this up, they think they're in a 1031 exchange, identify the properties, and then they talk to a professional. Professional says, well, wait, where's the money in escrow, right? So you can't receive that money. That's
No.
got to be. I've heard that's one of the biggest mistakes that people make, other than messing up the counter.
Yeah, correct. So talk to your 1031 exchange company first. Make sure they're legitimate too, because I've heard, just I don't know anybody personal, but I've heard that exchanges have taken money and not given it back. So there's all kinds of scammers out there. Make sure it's professional. But yeah, that's the thing. You need to talk to them before you close, because that money never went to us. It went right into the 1031 exchange. We never touched it. We never saw it. Just numbers on paper, and that was it. The crazy thing with that was those 45 days. We're sweating now. It's day 43. I'm getting ready to go show my clients a house about 40 minutes away. On the MLS pops up an 8-unit building right around the block, basically a mile away from our house. Our portfolio's all in one small area because we self-manage for ourselves. So we got to keep it close. So this 8-unit pops up. I talked to the agent on the MLS, and he's like, hey, put a purchase agreement in. So I had to go show the home. I had to hurry up and rush back, fill out a purchase agreement. So we bought it sight unseen. I had it locked up off the market in 4 hours. Sight unseen. 625 full asking was what they wanted for this 8-unit, 625,000, 2 bedrooms in Woodhaven. And he came back to me and said, I know we said, we're going to work at that price, but the owner's got a different number in mind. I said, well, 620, it's not going to appraise for 625. How much? But I need this deal to close. So I knew I was overpaying. I really had no choice. He said he'd like around 640. I said, well, I'll tell you what, tell him I'll give him my 3% commission. It was like $18,000, whatever the math was. I said, I will give that to him, not to the agent. I'll give that to the owner. Okay. So he's going to get to keep that $18,000. That did it, that right like that. He's like, yep, that's it. We'll sign it. We signed it, sight unseen, bought it. I knew the property. I'd actually already reached out to the previous owner that had sold it. The owner I'm buying it from through the MLS, he'd only owned it a few months. So he was flipping it. So he made some money on the deal, but I had reached out previously. It's in my backyard. This building was on my list, so I knew it. And it was a mom and pop. I knew it was in rough shape. I knew it was going to need a lot of work. We owned 2 other buildings in the area, similar. So I knew what we were getting into. I knew the cost of rehab. I knew the cost of water, the cost of heat, all of that. So we were ready to rock, sight unseen, and we had it locked up. And if we wouldn't have, that thing would have got I think that thing would have got overbid, and it could have sold for 670. It did only appraise for 600,000. Like I said, it didn't appraise. We bought it for 625. It appraised for 600,000. The great thing with multifamily, and this is why we're in it, we had to raise the rents. Average rents were 712. We raised them to 850 for 2 bedrooms. That's still low in this area. And we raised it to 850. And what that did was that with the 6.5 cap rate, that brought the value of the building up to around $703,000 in, I think, 2 months. So we added $100,000 in value in a very short time. And that's why we love multifamily.
Yeah, I love that story. And it reminds me of perfect fresh mistake. People forget to consider the effect of taxation on your profits. So always calculating that makes a big difference. That took a deal that might have been marginal, but for you getting to hold on to that $70,000, that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was the big driver for us. Yeah, and I'm sure there's a way to calculate that, but it was fantastic for us that we didn't have to do that, because what's going to happen now is in a year and a half or whenever we decide to, when we get to that point, we're going to refinance that building and pull the money out tax-free and move forward with more properties. And we're already renting those. We've rehabbed 3 so far. 1, we did just a beautiful rehab. with new cabinets. We're at 1,095, so 1,100 on that one. The other ones we're doing, we're at that first rehab I just mentioned was a $12,000 rehab. The other ones are doing $5,000 rehabs. We're getting up to $995, so $1,000 in rent. I projected $950 to the bank that when I told them, you know, this is where we're going to take this building, because the building was losing money. So, you know, obviously the bank said, well, why would we lend you on this building? And I said, because look, I'm going to be able to take it to $950 in rents. And I told them that's conservative. So we've already proved the 1,100 model. We've already proved the $1,000 model. So we're extremely excited. We've only owned it 6 months or so. So we're extremely excited the direction this building's headed.
That's exciting. And then this model that you have, right? A lot of people, they try to go into syndication right away, and they end up giving away a large portion of the deal. So you're up to, I think, counted 41 units, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, that money is all going to you, and you're not dealing with investors every day. You're not,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, the cash flow, it's like, you know, the $200 per property, which is what a lot of single family landlords would say, you know,
Mhm.
wow, you know, you got to have 50 of those before you're getting 10,000 a month. That's, anyway, it's a totally different game when you're owning the whole thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people miss that point too. You know, you'll hear a lot of people that have you know, 1,000 units assets under management. And that's awesome. I give people credit for everything they do. I think that's great, but you also need to look at personally owned, because like you said, my wife and I own these ourselves. We own 41 units ourselves. That all comes to us. In a syndication, a lot of times, depending on it, you know, you're going to get an acquisition fee, you know, a fee at the beginning, and, you know, a disposition fee, a fee at the end. But a lot of times during for some of the general partners, there might not be a lot of cash flow during the holding process. It depends. It depends on everything. I'm not making a blanket statement. I don't want to do that, but yeah, owning them yourself is quite a bit different than, you know, than syndicating and you know, having 40 units assets under management. Quite a difference.
Right. And then you're obviously a very hands-on owner. Uh, right. I mean, that's
Yeah.
another difference between, I think, your approach and many others. One of the things I love is I watch your YouTube videos, and I know a few of these you put on LinkedIn. You've got everything from, oh, let me see, getting commercial quality doorknobs versus the standard kind, how to deal with leaking basements. I think you've even got one that shows how to manipulate the I don't even know what to call those, but the furnace, right? There's the I can't even call it the manifold or whatever.
Oh yeah,
Totally
yeah.
mangling that. Never mind.
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, you know, it's funny. There's a to that. Yeah, I'm on YouTube, Grant Warrington, TikTok, Grant Warrington. I got videos on there, and then Instagram, Grant Warrington. Those are my major platforms I focus on. But what happened was there's so much information I feel out there about how to buy a house, how to buy an apartment building, right? What happens when you buy it? And that's kind of the space I feel I like to try to fill in, because there's not a lot of people that say, okay, who does your commercial flooring? You know, Sherwin-Williams does our flooring. They're one of the largest flooring distributors in the United States. A lot of people don't know that. And they'll do commercial flooring only. They won't do residential houses unless you own a lot of them. But so there was a kind of a disconnect for me, like LVP, should I use glue down or click? What color paint schemes? What, you know, everybody did the before and afters, but what kind of locks do you put on your building? What kind of master locks? These were all questions we had to go through and tackle. Luckily, I had a friend of mine that's been through some of them, and I kind of watched his system when I worked for him, and we kind of implemented those. But these are things that we had to go through and experience. So I'll make a video on it. You know, the baseboard registers for boiler heat, they were destroyed. They hadn't been changed in 60 years. They're all original. They were rusted out. So we went to Supply House. We ordered them and changed them out. So I made a video about that. Hey, here's where we got them. Here's how much we paid for them. They're very inexpensive. and you can do it too. So that's kind of what I do. I do work on them, like you said, but here's the thing. We couldn't find anybody to do the work. We're at a tough point. When you get to around 40, 50 units, lucky it's my wife and I, 50%, right? I wouldn't be able to do this. When you get to around that unit count, you need another person, and her and I do it. So that's how we're able to survive. But what happens is we're too small to have a full-time employee. So we have to sub it out. We have contractors that do work for us and fill in, but a lot of them have full-time jobs or whatnot. So we just piece it together. So if we couldn't find someone, I'd get in there. I'm like, I'm not letting this thing sit. I'm not afraid to work. So I jump in there and I would do some of the work. But we also feel that your business is in levels, right? So we feel we're in a level. We want to build up to a certain level, and that level is getting a full-time employee. And then I want to get out of that level. So you always need to focus on that. So we're always looking forward at our business going, okay, I'm not going to be the fix-it guy. I have to do those things now, but we're working up to a point where I need to get out of that. And I am transitioning out of that. But like I said, always work up to a level, get yourself out of that level, because listen, we want to be spending the winters somewhere warm. That's our goal. So we always look, okay, there's where we want to be. What do we need to get that? Obviously, I cannot be hands-on every single day in this business to get to that point.
Fair enough. Well, how about this? Let's talk about having a real estate license. So some people feel that's a great way to go. Other people feel like it kind of gets in the way. It's worked out for you. What are your thoughts?
It all depends what you want to do with it. Just keep in mind, it's can be about $1,000 a year to hold a real estate license. You have to be a member of a board. You have to get MLS access. And so it's not cheap. The other thing a lot of people don't understand is, if you're looking to be a realtor, coming from a W-2 job, unless you're in sales, people would put work on your desk, you would complete the work. With this, you're on your own. You need to go find your people, find your clients, and there's no one making you do it. So it can be tough. I got my license years ago because I wanted to buy and sell for myself. So it worked out great for me, but that's all we did. We only bought and sold for ourselves. And then when I quit my W-2, my two W-2s, I took 2 pay cuts to get into real estate full time. But my second job, I was a property manager. I managed around 800 units in Southeast Michigan, including my own. And when I quit that because I needed more time to build my portfolio, and it just made sense. I already had my license. It just made sense to me to become a full-time realtor. Everyone I know, they know I'm in real estate. So there was no shock that I did that. So it worked out really well for me, and it was an easier transition for me. My thing is, if you're looking to buy single family homes on your own, and you want to get a license, then get a license. That's great. You absolutely don't need to, though. It does make it easier because I wanted to go look at a home when I wanted to go look at it. So it made it a lot easier to have a license for that purpose, but you absolutely don't need to. So that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, and then being a real estate professional, that brings with it some tax benefits. Are you able to use any of those benefits?
Yeah, my wife and I both are full-time in real estate.
Yeah.
So, she's doesn't have a W-2. She's, handles the property management side, all of that. And then I'm full-time realtor and then investor as well. So yeah, we're full-time in real estate, both of us.
Right. Okay. But that's really just the losses that you get to deduct. I forget, does the depreciation, that counts as an accounting loss. So are there any ways to sort of jazz that up or make it more valuable? You're in multifamily. What about a cost seg? Does any of that come together to create any benefits?
So for us, my wife's not here, but I would have to default for her. She's got her master's in taxation.
Oh, nice.
She hasn't done anything with it for years. Obviously, we're in this now, but but she's always, I always just defer all that to her. But with the cost seg, I can speak on, if you're at extremely high, which we are not, extremely high W-2 or you're extremely high earner, right? When you do a cost seg, that really helps against your income. And I don't know all the ins and outs, talk to your CPA, but the reason we didn't do one was because we don't have any income to offset. Our taxes, we don't make a lot of income, which is great. We don't pay a lot of taxes. So, but yeah, that's why we never did one, because there's nothing there to offset. Again, talk to a CPA about that, but it just didn't make sense for us.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, and I can tell you a little bit about the W-2 rule. I'm not a CPA or not, nor do I have a master's in taxation. That was actually my dad's thing. He did that. He actually had a master's taxation. He
Nice.
did tax accountancy in addition to many, many other financial services. But yeah, they phase it out actually after $100,000. So
Okay.
you're making 100K maximum benefits, whatever tax bracket you're in. You can, oh goodness, you know what, I had the number in my mind, but there's X $1,000 that you can actually deduct. And then between 100 and 150, it phases out completely. So those super high income earners, they get nothing out of that. If you're in a W-2, like in a leadership role or whatever, you may be making that sort of money. But yeah, people who are between 100 and 150 get a pretty big benefit. Less than 100 or close, I guess I would say close to 100 is really where it has some pretty significant benefits. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Yep. So
Well,
you're
anyway, sorry, I
no
think I may have flubbed that a little bit, but the point is that, yeah, if you have a W-2, there can be some good benefits to that. But again, you got to kind of be at the right place. Not enough income, not much to offset. Under $50,000, you get nothing.
Yeah, exactly. And we where we're at too is these properties we bought, we take a lot of our cash flow and we put it back into the property at this point, because we rehab every property that turns over, every unit that turns over. They were in that bad of shape that they all need to be rehabbed. And we do light fixtures, electrical outlets, light switches, flooring, paint, appliances. We do all of that. So, it costs quite a bit of money.
So how about this? Why don't we go into the last phase of the interview, Grant? I just want to ask you, do you have any advice for new entrepreneurs?
My advice would be to get started, and whatever it is, educate yourself though. I mean, that's the bottom line. I wasn't educated in the beginning and I wasn't right mentally. You can get right mentally and educate yourself by getting around people, networking, listen to podcasts like this. It's a great podcast. But you got to get that information, get around people, get in person, go to in-person meetups, continually go. You'll meet big players at those meetups, people that are doing things. Those are the people you want to get around to and listen to. And that's been huge for us. So that's I would suggest, but also do something. If you don't do anything, you're doing nothing. So you can listen as much as you want and educate yourself as much as you want. But if you don't buy something, just specifically speaking about real estate, if you never buy anything, you're not doing anything. So you need to buy, at least if you're comfortable, buy a single family. We were in 2017, we were gung ho about syndicating. And we still have plans to do that. And we got some people on our team that we're going to do that with, but it just wasn't, we weren't finding the deals. So that's when we decided, why don't we go back to what we know? And that's putting these smaller deals together. So that's when we went after it was after we had owned the 20, we were going bigger, right? And then we thought, let's go back to what we know. That's when we bought the 11 unit. That's when we bought the 8 unit. So, just keep that in mind. You got to be doing something. You got to be moving forward in some day, whether it's this much, just move forward a little bit every day.
I love it. Educate yourself, but don't forget to take action. Love education. I feel like you're learning on someone else's dime, learning from someone else's mistakes. That's a very brilliant way to go. Love it. So do you have any questions for me, Grant?
I did have one, the Foundery. How'd you come up with the name?
All right, cool. So that's an FAQ. The Foundry, I just love the idea of entrepreneurship and how it is a great proving ground for leadership. So if you look at somebody like Henry Ford, he started, I want to say, tinkering when he was 37 with automobiles. Around 40, he founded Ford Motor Company. And just look, he grew that into one of the biggest corporations in the world. Steve Jobs, another great example of that. People who may have been leaders in their corporate life, but when they got into entrepreneurship and they found that vision, and when they started executing on that vision, they found a whole new world of leadership. And so the whole thing is all about the analogy of that plus fire, where leaders are forged daily. Foundry, of course, that's casting, and forge, that's more of like what a blacksmith does, right? But who cares? Let's mix our metaphors a little bit.
I love that. I love how passionate too you are about that. I can see that. I love the emblem too. You know, in construction, I was in construction for 23 years. That was my main job. And I worked in steel mills. I worked on blast furnaces. You know, so I've seen all that. Your picture. I mean, I'd see them pouring metal, and it just brings me back to that, which you know, it's just pretty cool. I love the emblem and the passion too that you have for it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I carry that through all of my groups. So, for example, I've got a commercial real estate networking at noon. That's something you can join on Wednesdays. That's noon Eastern time, and use the same graphics, try to draw that all together. But anyway, thank you, Grant, for an outstanding interview. Thanks for coming on the Foundry.
Yeah, thanks, George. Thanks for having me. Very excited to do this. So yeah, I really appreciate it.